Okay, the next thing to do on this tractor is to kind of go through this deck and check everything out on it to make sure this is ready to go for a couple of seasons. There's quite a few bearings on here. It looks like a couple of new pieces put on at some point. That pulley looks new, that pulley looks new, but you know, there's 3 spindles in here. I want to check the bearings on all those. I don't know what the blades look like. We'll flip it up. We'll see if the blades are any good. We'll sharpen them. I have a new set. I can replace them. But we're going to start by getting the belt off and taking these spindle covers off, and then see if we can spin all the bearings and see what they sound like. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is get this belt off. So let's just swing this way. Alright, I'm going to take these covers off. Alright, these covers got 1/2 inch fasteners. One of them's missing back here. Okay, I was able to get the belt off pretty easily, and now I want to tip it up and take a look underneath it. These blades look like they're practically new. I'll take them off and sharpen them up, but they look like they're in great shape. These spindles look good. Alright, since I'm in here, I'm going to investigate a little bit, so I'm going to take these blades off and see what's back there. Okay, these nuts are 1 1/8. Hopefully they'll come right off. Okay, like I said, these blades look beautiful. They look like they're brand new, actually. I can sharpen them up a little bit, maybe. So I've never taken one of these apart before, so let me see what is solid spacer. Alright, so we'll lay these things out the way they came off, like that, like that, like that, like that. This is my first mower with a deck. I mean, every other mower I had, the blade was bolted right to the crank of the engine. So I'm not really sure how these things work or what's in here. Yeah, okay. It was leaning against the post. This does come out. Okay, there's a grease fitting in the top. Grease fitting on the top. A grease hole here on the side. And this spindle comes off with these 4 bolts that I now have access because I took the pulley off. So I'm going to take this entire thing right out and see if I can better understand how the whole thing works. Okay, these are 1/2 inch, and then this spindle should fall right out of here. And here's our spindle, and let's clean this up a little bit. Alright, let me see if I can figure out how this thing works. See what I mean about this seal right here? This is a nice clean lip, and that's broken and missing. till we get to here again. So from here to here, this nice clean lip is missing. Or if this rubber boot, or if this rubber seal is replaceable, I'd love to get some new rubber seals and then just clean it, grease it, and put new seals in it. Okay, so it looks like I can get some new seals here. So what I think I'm going to do is, there's no stores around here that have them. I have to order them online, which means it's going to be a couple of days probably. I'm going to order 6 of these seals, and I'm going to do all 3 spindles. Pull the seal out, then I can pull all the bearings out. And we can clean them. Yeah, that seal is just keeping it in there. And clean it all up, reassemble it, put some fresh grease in it, and we'll be good to go. So that's the plan. I'm going to take the other 3 spindles off, and then I just got a bunch of cleaning to do, and I will see you back when we have some new parts. Okay, the first thing I want to do is pack these bearings with grease. And here's how you do it. You want to force the grease in the back of the bearing, pushing it all the way through. And I'm just going to go like this. And so now I've got grease filling this whole bearing assembly. That's one. Let me do the other. Okay, there's another bearing assembly. After I'd cleaned it, now it's all greased. And I'm going to do, since I'm greasy right now, I am going to do all these 6 bearings. Alright, time to assemble the spindle. It's nice and clean on the inside where it counts. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to drop this pre-greased bearing in there. And then bought some new seals. So we're going to put some new seals in here as well. And I noticed when I was taking it apart, didn't realize it at the time, but one of these seals was in backwards, like this. It's supposed to be like this. The one that was in backwards is where I noticed that the lip was torn. But I remember cleaning it and I was seeing this side of the seal needs to go in this way. So let's put it in correctly. Going to lubricate this surface that the seal needs to slide in on, so it slides in and it doesn't bite and distort the outside edge of it. And this outside edge needs to slide in there. I don't want this thing peeling up if I can help it. Just so happens 1 3/8 inch socket is a pretty decent fit. Alright, that's one seal. Flip it over. Drop a spacer in there that's clean. Drop a greased bearing in there, and let's grease up this face that the seal needs to slide in on. Now install this seal. We don't want to do that. That's better. We don't want to make the mistake someone did before us. Try to get this thing to go in. Alright, that looks good to me. I'm good with that. It's in far enough. So that's fully assembled. Of course, there's not a lot of grease inside there yet. But when we put the bolt in, the bolt's got a grease fitting. And it's also got a hole in the center of it. So when I slide this bolt in, now when I pump grease through the Zurich fitting, it's going to come out in the center of this bearing and grease everything. And the seal comes into play. On the top, you've got the pulley that goes on it, and so the seal is going to seal against this surface here. Like that. And so now that keeps all the grease inside. And on the bottom, we've got this cap and this face here is where the seal makes a connection. And so that keeps all the grease inside. And I went and cleaned these up, this face up, because we want a nice clean face that's going to be spinning on the seal. We don't want to tear the seal up with a jagged edge. We clean that face up so this face is not dirty or grimy or rough and just wearing out the seal prematurely. So when it's all together, it's going to look like this. Oop. The seal's not going to hold it together. And then the bolt going through it. This one actually has a grease fitting in it. It's the only spindle with a grease fitting, but like I said, the bolt goes through it, the grease fitting, and then it fills the inside of the spindle with grease. So I think we're set. We're in good shape. Yep, the seal is covering that, and the seal is covering that. And so there we are. Of course, this face and this face go against the inner race of this bearing and the inner race of that bearing. And then with the spacer in the center, it just makes for one solid connection. You sock down that nut on the blade, and everything is good. And so that's the rebuild of the spindles. Alright, now I'm going to install my refurbished spindles. You go like this on the back side, or the top side. You've got this plate, and then the bolts go through it and tighten right into the spindle. And when I'm assembling something, I like to assemble it by hand with a wrench. And when I'm assembling something, I like to torque it by hand. so I kind of get a feel for how tight I'm making things. Impact wrench can break stuff. You just set it on high with 100 pounds going through it. Yeah, that feels good to me. And then we'll go do the other two. These blades to me look like they're not that old. They look to be in good shape. They just could use a bit of a sharpening. So I'm going to try to sharpen these a little bit. And I'm going to stay away from this back side. And I'm going to concentrate my attention onto this beveled edge. And I'm just going to hit a flap wheel on it, see if I can get a sharper edge. And that's it, install them back on. So I've got one here in my vise. And I've got my flap wheel here on a grinder. Let's see what I can do with this. Okay, I'm just trying to keep that same angle. I don't know if that's a specific angle. It seems to work best for the maintaining of the edge. But that's it. A couple more passes and then I'm done with this blade. I'll do the other side and I'll do all three of them. Alright, that seems like a nice clean edge and clean enough for a lawnmower blade, I suppose. I mean, I have brand new ones that aren't even that sharp. The brand new ones look pretty dull to me, but so I'm going with that and we'll do the other three blades. Alright, on second thought, I did the top face. Now I'm just going to, this is a non-aggressive flat wheel, so I'm just going to clean up this edge and the wheel's going to be going away from the edge, so I think it'll be nice to sharpen it without really gouging much. So let's give it a try. Happy with that. We'll do that on all three of these blades. I don't know if doing this exposing bare metal will, accelerate the rusting process, but that's not even that sharp really. But I'm going with it. And then we'll check it down the road and see if it's good or bad. So here's the final assembly. We've got from the back side, we've got the pulley goes on, the bolt goes through it. And this surface here on the inside of this step is what's going to mate with the new seal that's on the top of this spindle. So this whole thing's going in. And now the next thing is this, which this shoulder is going to mate up with that seal and keep all the grease inside of this thing. Like that. And the spacer. And then the blade. I do want to fill this with grease with a grease gun through the top of this bolt. I'm not sure exactly when I know it'll be full. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pump grease in it until I see grease kind of making its way towards this seal. Otherwise I'll just be pressurizing the seal. I don't want grease pressure in there, I just want it full of grease. So I'll leave it like this, I'll pump grease until I kind of see it, and then I'll know there'll be plenty of grease in there, and then I'll reassemble the rest of it. Okay, I'm going to force grease in here until I kind of see it. Okay, I just saw that bearing move, so I know there's grease behind it pushing on it. So that's enough. Okay, the rest of the assembly is this cap, which closes the seal, and that keeps everything in there. This heavy solid spacer. Then the blade, I can just tell this is where the nut end was, and that's where that spacer end was. So I know this goes on like this. We don't want to put this on backwards or upside down. And there we are, and then we sock that down tight. I'm going to grab the impact for this. Alright, now we want to sock this down very tight. I want these things flying off. Beautiful. One down, two more to go. Okay, here we are. Finished all three spindles, refurbished. Notice they don't spin forever because they're loaded up with nice, clean, fresh grease. And I think initially I could spin this and it would just continue to run and run and run. You might think, well, that's great, but that just tells me that it's dry and has no grease in it. So now I disassembled them, cleaned them, cleaned all the bearings, reassembled them, packed them with fresh grease, put new seals on bottom and top so the grease should stay in, the dirt should stay out. I mean, these are heavy-duty spindles, I think. I shouldn't have problems with this thing for 5 years. Hopefully. Alright, so I feel like I have to inspect every bearing on this deck, because if I don't, I mean, these, they look brand new. They're smooth. This thing, I mean, look at this thing. It's spinning forever. I mean, does that mean that there's not a lot of grease in there? I'm taking this off and I'm going to investigate. I think it needs grease. Okay, 15/16 right here. I believe this is screwed into this plate. I'm going to try to reverse it on low torque just to see what happens. There we go. Taking this whole assembly off, bring it over to the bench. Okay, that spins a little too much for me. I don't think there's much grease in this bearing, so ooh, it comes right out. All right. I'm not sure what that C-clip does in there, but this is what I'm interested in. Let's look inside here. It's smooth. It's very smooth. I think it just needs some grease. So let's put some grease in it. Alright, let's pack this baby with some grease. See if we can squish it into the other side. Alright, I think we squeezed that all the way through the other side. That's a well-greased bearing now. It's probably not going to spin forever, but it will stay cooler and last longer. And this cap will snap this back in place. If we can. And make sure that cap is on there tight. I didn't really get a good feel for a snap in place. Although it appears to be in place, I can push it down. Oh yeah, it's in there. Here's the other side. Packed full of grease now. See, it's not going to spin forever now because it's got some grease in there, which is, this is the way it should be. Shouldn't be able to spin it and have it run forever. Alright, that's one. And we got another one here on the other side. Got to remember the orientation of these pulleys. The big one's on the bottom, little one's on the top. I hope. I have to go back and look at a video. I think that should be plenty of grease. You know, I'm not sure that I want to overpack it with grease, because these seals are just kind of popped in place. I don't want the grease to heat up and expand and pop the seal out, then the thing's done. And there we are, nice and smooth. Got enough grease in there to keep it clean and cool and lubricated. See, it will no longer continue spinning like when it was dry. That's what the C-clips are for, just a stopper for the bearing. Done, done. Done. Alright, a couple things. I went back to the video and I noticed that the larger pulley is up on top. And I also realized that I forgot to put the spacer in between there, so I pulled the bearing out, put the spacer back in, so there is a spacer between these two pulleys. And this is going on like this. Alright, I like that better. Okay, I'm done refurbishing this deck. This is the 54 fabricated deck from Cub Cadet. Goes on my GTX 2100. And as you saw, we went through each of the spindles, we disassembled them, cleaned all the bearings, repacked them with fresh grease, put new seals on them. Repacked the grease in the bearings for that pulley, the double pulley. And these other two pulleys were brand new and they were fine. Sharpened up the blades, and this thing should be ready to go now for several years. I shouldn't have to do anything. Of course, I will always be inspecting it and looking for signs of any kind of wear, but it should be good to go. So that was kind of fun. Hope you enjoyed, and thanks for watching.